Well, welcome, Todd, to the Semgrep office hours. Today, speaking of rule writing, we're going to be demoing the new editor that just came out. So it allows you to write rules in with greater ease than before. So Ty, you want to start? Share your screen. Take it away.
Awesome. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, and Todd, how is the text size for you? Should we up the text a little bit?
It looks good to me. It looks good to me.
Okay, cool. Just want to make sure that you can read it. All right, go ahead.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited to showcase the playground. It's really one of my favorite features that was newly added to the Semgrep app not too long ago. Really, the playground is your one-stop shop to tweak, fork, test out custom rules. It's really an experiment playground to test custom rules. So if you're not new to Semgrep app or writing Semgrep rules, we usually suggest that you leverage our Semgrep registry. So if you look here on the left-hand panel, you have two folders. One is with your deployment name or your Semgrep account name. In this folder, you have all your rules that you've written before. And of course, we also have our Semgrep registry. These are open source rules spanning different multiple languages from Golang to Rust to HTML, JavaScript. So for example, if I open up Java, let's just open up the log for J1. You can see that I can actually fork this rule and create a custom rule around this. Or you can even copy the link to the rule and you can share it with, collaborators or friends, whoever you want to share it with. But for this case, for this workshop, I'll actually write something custom from scratch.
And Ty, who writes these rules that are in the Semgrep registry?
Really, we say developers, security engineers, but we're really developer focused. So you can write a Semgrep rule in a matter of a couple of minutes, especially if you're new. And I'll actually show you how you can do that here.
Yeah, and so they're contributed by both community members and employees at R2C. You can a combination of both, but all the rules that are in the registry are reviewed by our security research team.
That is correct. And just to kind of highlight one of the more important features here, the simple mode and the advanced mode. The simple mode, you can kind of see it as a wizard or like a clean UI where you can actually start writing more robust or complicated rules. Or if you're new, you're not too familiar with Semgrep syntax or the operators, the simple mode is a really great feature that you can leverage to start writing rules immediately. And then we also have our advanced mode. This is written in a YAML syntax. So if you're a little bit more adventurous or you're comfortable with writing YAML files, you can also write your rules here as well.
Yeah, and I'll add that any rule that is written in advanced mode can also be written in simple mode. It's just a matter of like what UI you prefer. I will personally say, as someone who thought I knew YAML and then started writing more rules, YAML sometimes has you need to be aware of white space and such. And so the simple mode can help save yourself from, it's a more foolproof way to get you started with writing rules.
Yes, that's exactly right. And I actually use the simple mode, myself, especially if I'm just trying to create something, brand new from scratch. I find it easier to leverage the simple mode since the UI is very clean and straightforward. Awesome. So I have a test code file here on the right-hand panel in Java. This is pertaining to the log4j vulnerability that was pretty well known a couple of months back. So you can see here that I'm actually importing the log4j package, and I'm actually calling to a couple of methods. I'm using the logger variable as well. So I'm going to just go ahead and start writing a quick rule in the simple mode. So if I actually go ahead and run this, you can see that Semgrep is able to catch that in sub-seconds. Right off the bat, we can actually start abstracting some of this away. So I'm going to use something that we call a typed variable. So I'm really trying to capture this here on line 6, where we're using that logger variable there. I'm going to throw in a meta variable called logger.
And so the reason that Ty is adding, like, abstracting away this log variable is since, you know, you can call your logger variable anything, and we just, the important thing is we want to capture uses of this logger class that are any method calls using that are unsafe.
That's correct. And so you can see that I'm using 3 abstractions that's built on top of the Semgrep engine, which is the meta variable. So this just captures a single value. So that can be a variable, it can be an argument, whatever you choose. And we use that with the $sign there. So essentially,
oh, go ahead.
Oh, yep. I was going to say, essentially, this pattern is just saying that we're going to look for the logger variable. We don't really care what the method name is. And then we're also trying to capture a pattern that has a argument within that method.
And these names that Ty has written are, they could be anything. These are just variable names. It's your personal preference. And we're sensically naming them method and arg. But yes, of course, they're just variable names. It's the Semgrep syntax for saying some sort of method call, some sort of argument in this position.
And if I go ahead and click run here, you can see Semgrep is able to catch a few instances. It does miss on line 49, on line 72, and he even catches this false positive. But that's by design. I didn't finish writing this rule yet. We're going to add a little bit more complex logic around it to mitigate this false positive and also catch line 49 and line 72 as well. So I can
and I'll just add, Ty, that false positive is a false positive. In case you're not familiar with the log4j bug, it's only a bug if you take unsafe input from a user or potentially from an overlay network of some sort. And so that one is just taking a string on line 19, so it's actually okay.
That's correct. And then actually, if I go ahead and click this plus button here, you can see that Semgrep prompts you with another text box and also gives you a drop-down menu of different operators you can choose from. So for example, you can use the or is, the is inside, the is not. And we also have an auto fix operator as well, a few different operators. So for example, I want to match 2 types of patterns. So I'm going to use the or is pattern operator, and I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste this. And I'm going to throw in something we call ellipses. This just captures 0 or more values. So that can be multiple lines of code. It can be multiple arguments, as I'm using here in this example. And so if I go ahead and run this here, you can see it's actually able to catch those other use cases that we missed before. So line 72, and I believe it was also line 44 as well. But we still have that false positive. So we're going to keep chugging away at this. I'm going to add another text box, and I'm going to choose the is inside operator. And what this just means, we're going to look for these 2 anti-patterns. Oh, let's refresh that. It's loading. Awesome. So we're going to use the is inside operator here. What this just means, we're going to look for these 2 patterns after this statement, or that's inside the statement. So you see on line 1, we're importing that log4j package, and we're also importing a class from there called log manager. Since we don't really care what that class is called per se, we can also abstract that away with the meta variable. And then right after that, I also add the ellipses operator, just abstracting away the multiple lines that comes after that import statement.
So Ty, with the ellipses after that though, if we're just saying it's inside anything after that, do we need the ellipses?
So you will need the ellipses if you're sort of trying to also capture anything that comes after that statement.
Okay.
Awesome. And we're going to add one more operator just to try to ignore this false positive here. So we're going to use the is not. So essentially it's the opposite of is. So we're trying to find a pattern or anti-pattern that's not going to capture at all. So I'm going to also just copy and paste this. And it looks like it's just using a string. So we're looking on line 18 here. The developer just passed in one single string. So what we'll do is we'll use that ellipses operator one more time. And let's run this to see if that works.
And so, yeah, the ellipses operator in the string is saying you can have a string with any sort of content in it.
Awesome. And actually, I'm going to just go ahead and move into the advanced mode. So like Emily said before, you could write this rule in simple mode, and the moment you click the advanced mode, Semgrep will automatically format that for you to the advanced mode. And this is, once again, just in YAML syntax as well. So I actually can just show you here how that would look. So let's say I want to change a few instances here. Instead of using the pattern inside with that import statement, let's say we're just trying to look for instances inside this public method here. So I'm going to go in here. And I can actually just say, copy this. Like that. Essentially what this is saying is, let's look for any method or anything inside a method called public void. We don't really care about the function name. We also don't care the arguments that's being passed in there, as long as it's the type of HTTP exchange. And we also want to make sure this method is throwing some sort of exception. And then once again, we throw in those ellipses operator just to capture anything within that function. And so if I go ahead and press run, you can see Semgrep ignores everything else and only finds these two anti-patterns here. And so this is really the main beauty of using the playground. You can start a rule from scratch, and you can even see how this rule will look in a developer workflow. And I'll hand this off to Emily to show how that would work.
Yeah, so so you can write rules, but like, what good are they if developers are just writing code and you're the one that's having to track down those developers with the code that is causing problems. So you can hook up Semgrep to run on your pull requests before they are submitted, and you can get inline code review comments. And so this gives you a preview of what those comments look like. And as you can see, Ty is typing, and it gives you a live preview. You see right below that Semgrep thing, it's changing as it's typing. And if you're not, and the way these messages are formatted is using Markdown. And if you're not familiar with Markdown, oh no, what happened? Oh, did a white space thing happen?
You might need to put quotes around it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes, like quotes around the whole message string. Yeah. Or you can do the vertical bar and then a new line and then indent, I think.
Right. Yeah, so so Ty has just added, what I was gonna say is we have a little handy cheat sheet down at the bottom of how some Markdown formatting works, like italic or bold, which Ty has now currently on the watch out, as well as like code formatting or specific links. And another cool thing is you can reference specific meta variables in your message. So those things like the $logger, go back to preview for a second, Ty. Yep. The $logger or $method, if you want to put that in the relevant name in your message, you can do so. All right, go to the metadata tab. So this is another little handy dandy formatted sort of wizard, as Ty calls it, for the for additional metadata about your rule. Things like if you can click on the technologies, people can, if you're searching for specifically like a Docker particular rule, you can tag it as such, and other developers can find that. In this case, we're not using any particular technology, so we can remove that. The rule source URL is if you are porting a rule from somewhere else, you can reference where it came from, or if there are any references, URLs for to give additional information about how this rule came about or what the vulnerability is. And then the category, I'm jumping around a little bit. The category is, again, a little more information about what type of rule this is. In this case, it's a security rule. And again, this can help your developers know what the problem is that Semgrep is finding, what type of problem, and then also if people are searching for particular rules. And with the security rule, there's the CWE. You can reference the particular one that your rule is catching. And then also like the OWASP particular thing. And we get nice handy little drop downs for all of those. Yeah, I think that's all for that. And you can specify language, which you already got.
Awesome. And another just pro tip, we also have our docs tab here as well. So if you are having some trouble, you can leverage our cheat sheet on this tab. So you can actually see how to use different sort of syntax. You can also see different cheat sheets about how to match certain sort of expressions as well, which is really
yeah. So if you're, can you go back to the docs for 1 second?
Yep.
Yeah, this will save you going back between the actual Semgrep docs page and your rule writing. If you're like, oh, I just forget how to, I have this, I want to catch this particular syntax in Java, we can give you some help on that page.
Also, I believe that page will like auto update based on the language that you specify in your rule. Totally. And so it'll give you examples tailored to your language as well, which is really neat.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. And of course, once you're done testing out your rule, you can actually save it, or you can even share it. So you can make this public, you can make it private, you can make a permalink for it to share it with collaborators within the app. And of course, if you do log into the app, you can actually add it straight to the Semgrep app. So once you do a scan, this rule would run automatically.
Cool. Thanks for the demo, Ty. Does anyone have any questions, or it can be about this, or it can be about just Semgrep in general?
Quick question from me. We have a very large PHP code base, and I've noticed that it's in beta now. Is there a delivery date for a finished PHP product?
Ooh, Enode or Grayson?
We have someone working on some PHP rules right now. Although I think Grayson would have more specific information on that. Let me see if I can find some.
This is Raj. So I think the current plan is to have this targeted by the end of the month, right? So I think we're definitely talking weeks here, like not months, but we can definitely follow up and kind of let you guys know, when it's actually GA. But yeah, my goal, I think the current plan is to have it be GA by the end of the month.
Oh, fantastic. That's great news. Thank you.
Anyone else? Is Enno, are there any particular fun things that you're working on? You don't have to actually, like, we don't have to work through them, but I'm just curious about what is exciting in the security research world at the moment.
Yeah, right now I'm working on some rules for Golang, specifically ones that are meant to catch like your like OWASP like top 10s or whatever. So we have like a lot of different rules for like different languages and also different frameworks in them. And so I'm working on a particular framework that we don't have such like precise coverage for. So I'm working to like up our coverage for that one.
Awesome. Cool. there any other questions? If not, we can end just a hair early, but this is not saying, please feel free to ask questions. That's what we're here for. I'll give a brief, two plugs. One, if you don't know about our community Slack, let me see if I can get a handy link for that. I'll drop it in the messages in just a second. But if you're not there, do join, and you can ask more questions there. And our next meetup is next week, or our next office hours is next week. And Peter, who is also on the security team, plus me and Ty, and probably a handful of other R2C people, will be here. We'll be talking about tips and tricks for writing fixes. So if you remember, Ty, can you go to that like preview tab on your screen? Yeah. So you can optionally add a little fix thing in your pull review comment, and we'll be talking about like best practices to make those super useful and sort of become an expert at writing auto fixes. I will try and grab the Slack link. Give me a second.
Just to kind of like also just show how that would work too. You can use the simple mode and actually use the auto fix here. And so like, let's say, let's add one here. And select auto fix. Let's see if this works. Let's just say we want to auto fix it to, let's see. Do something like that.
And I just dropped a link.
Oh.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, would you know how auto fixing works? Actually, we can probably give a small quick demo on, like, let's say we have an instance here and we're trying to capture a few of these patterns, but we want to fix it automatically. What can I put into the auto fix box here?
Well, in this case, I believe the issue is in log4j itself. So the autofix would be, don't use it. Is there, Grayson, is there?
If I remember correctly, this was a couple months ago. There's a setting that's behind the scenes that does JNDI lookups, and that's the thing that needs to be disabled. So it's not strictly the
library itself.
Yeah, or the use of the library itself. It's a setting behind the scenes.
Oh, right.
Although there is a syntax that I believe that you can check for, which is something like JNDI : something, but I don't remember the specifics.
Yeah, I'm remembering now. Like it's a setting that allows like custom code execution within the string. It happens when doing the like logging itself, and it's like it's a setting when you are instantiating the logger. So I don't, but basically, yeah, the for the quick purposes of a demo, we can just have that run testing. And then I think we're over time, so I want to respect people's time. I dropped a link to the community Slack, and we'll all be there, happy to answer questions, us and others. So thank you again for coming.